research, understanding what research is, understanding how to conduct thorough research, understanding due diligence. So it's been an absolutely incredible journey for me so far, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen, in the next couple of years. Because again, the whole premise of investing is not a 1 day or 2 week process. This is for financial freedom, and that's something that's going to take time. So these are the things that I care about. This is who I am, hip hop artist, a little nerdy, but who doesn't like a little nerd? You know what I'm saying? From time to time you have to bring in the numbers, you have to talk about the tech. So yeah, so that's who I am.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I'm thinking though, for those who just are coming here for the first time and those who are aware of who we are, we seem like the odd couple. There's a old theater production called The Odd Couple, and it's a comedy from I think the 50s. Y'all can look me up on that. I don't have the date, but it's about the two unlikely friends and this group, and they have this comedy. And it seems like, what would a researcher and a scientist and a mathematician and music artist have in common? Technology. And I think
Technology.
it's
Yep.
technology, right?
Yep.
And that's the thing about it. Like, technology brings us all together. And one of the things that I found impactful is that that's the common goal. But the underlying goal, which is important to me, is the impact. And that's one thing that I know that you talk about all the time on your platform is how does this impact your tribe? How does it impact my tribe, my family, the people I care about? And that's why we're here together. We have a common goal. It seems like the third eye.
Absolutely. I think like how you're describing it, it really comes down to that. It comes down to community. You know, I um I refrain sometimes from calling the people who consume our music, from calling them fans. My social media handles are all friends of Indigo, not fans of Indigo, friends of Indigo. Because the premise of that is that ultimately what I'm doing is I'm creating a community. I've managed to create a community around people who listen to my music and people who believe in me, and some people who believe in the messages that I put out in my music. And it's no different from these massive technology companies. Even if we're going to talk about cell phones, we talk about Apple, and the Apple versus Android war. There are people who are very Apple. Like if you gave them an Android phone, they would never use it. Regardless of how, whether it's the latest Android phone or whatever, they just wouldn't use it because they belong to the Apple community. They associate with that. And then there are people who are Android users who are like, I'll never use an iPhone. Like I feel like, with this phone, I get to do this, I get to do this, I get to do this. And so when you start thinking about it like that, and you start, when I think of it like that, and I think about all of these companies in tech, in crypto, all of the things that they're trying to solve, I think about like, well, who are they trying to solve these problems for? Because ultimately that's a community in itself, and anywhere where there is a flow of money, there's a transfer of value, so I always think of that like, what value what value are these people giving these people? What value do these people extract from this company? you know it's very like it is a little odd, I guess, because it's like, because Underdog, you're all the way in the United States, brother. You know what I mean? For those of you who don't know, I'm from Zimbabwe. Today is our Independence Day, 44 years of independence. So proud of my country, so proud of everything that
Happy
we've gone
Independence
through.
Day.
Thank you so much. Yeah. My people are so resilient. We're so resilient. There's so many ups and downs that we've gone through, but the one thing that we always manage to do is to find a way through, and which is why, like, from this part of the world, I can come and talk about technology and talk about the things that I care about and find community, because ultimately it's about that. It's about connecting with people. It's about providing value. It's understanding that, like, you cannot stand alone. A man is not an island, you know. You cannot be an island, So we um we have to connect, we have to connect. And right now, the thing that's actually bringing all of us together right now here on this platform is the research. you know that's what it is. That's the thing that holds our community together. So yeah.
That brings me to a conversation. What are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about a few different things, but you just said you have your Independence Day in Zimbabwe. Is that correct?
Yep.
And I was thinking about that. Independence. Every country likely has a significant event about independence, and I think that's very interesting because we're looking for financial independence. That's the thing that you just discussed on your last episode. I think it was episode 8 of the Third Eye. And
Yep.
so let's start a topic about what holds us hostage. That sound good to you?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, like, you're absolutely right. At the end of the day, unless of course, like, you have already acquired it. If you already have acquired it, and John, and you're listening to us speak, absolutely leave us a comment and give us a 10-step tutorial as to how you did that. I wouldn't be mad at some more information. But for the majority of people, like, that's what we seek, right? A lot of people live hand to mouth, and doesn't matter which part of the world you're from. Times are different. We're not living in the same times as like 20 years ago, and that might come across as a disadvantage. When I look at it, it's like, wow, but there's so many things that I am capable of doing now that people my age 20 years ago weren't able to do. If you think at the beginning of the dot-com bubble, there wasn't any Google. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have Telegram. Definitely didn't have no Telegram. You know what I mean? So how were people conducting research then? You'd have to go into a library and get a library card and sit in the library and sift through books, and then also those books in that library would then also have to be updated after a certain amount of time. But like now, the problems that we have, yeah, it might be we might be getting like a lot of information. Like there might be like information overload per se, you know, but then the one thing that's there is that there's a ton of information. you know there's a lot of information out there, and it's about how you take that onus to go and research that, or how you sift through that information. So I think some of the things that do hold us back is that trust. First of all, we don't know what information to trust, and because we don't know what information to trust, I think it's also a thing on us. It's a thing of, we don't trust ourselves enough to know what the right information, what the wrong information is you know
That's a good point. And I was going to tap into that too. I'm going to follow up on what you just said. That trust aspect. You know, honestly, the Third Eye, it's really hard to trust. I think about it from my perspective. I've been conducting research and in this field for over 20 years. And that doesn't mean that I'm always going to get it right, because the information that I see is a mixture of information. I mean, let me give an example. If I was to look up what is the meaning of life, now that question is going to be subjective, right? So not only do I have a issue with me researching what the issue of life is, because the meaning of life may translate differently across demographics, social communities. The meaning of life might be different on an individual standpoint. And if you think about that, that means there will be varied responses. So how do you find out what response is applicable to you? Well, we want as a society to have a definitive, a yes or no. Like, and I think I'm gonna apply this to the technology. If we're using this same mentality to research a technology, and I say, hey, you know what? This technology with artificial intelligence is a great technology. Then the business fails. Is the technology no longer great, or was the business not too early and not in the right place at the right time? How do we use that data with the technology as artificial intelligence, and a company is using artificial intelligence, and then that business itself fails? What if the business owner was the greatest scientist in the world, but they don't know how to run a business? How do you quantify what is good or bad in a space, especially when you add your money? That's the problem. And the problem with that is it's not only a area where you might have varied responses, there's also disinformation and misinformation. And I've done a lot of conversation on this, and I'm gonna break that down really quick. And to go, have you ever heard those two terms, disinformation or misinformation yourself?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. And,
Yep.
and you've been me and you have been knowing each other for several years now, and I've done a few videos where I talked about this. But what do you know disinformation as, and from your thought process? And I'll give you my thoughts. What is disinformation to you?
Yeah. So I know it's purposefully taking facts and misrepresenting them to lead people into a certain direction, or to lead people into making a certain choice. You
That's
know,
right.
that, yeah.
What about misinformation? So I just said disinformation. So if I say, hey, this was misinformation, what is that to you?
I think then misinformation would be the antonym of information, which would be um, incorrect information. Yeah.
Y'all see him say antonym. You see the third eye.
Yep.
I'm
I'm out
country.
here.
See, I'm
I'm out
country,
here.
and he said, "No, it's." I like it. He said, "Anthony, I love it." He gave you another high level, and I love that. He's right. Misinformation is that way. So put that in perspective for those who watching. So if I was to say to you, and I'm gonna give this example, all dogs are black, and all dogs bite people, guaranteed, that would be disinformation. We know that all dogs are not black, and we know that all dogs do not bite people. So the logic of that is incorrect, but I'm making a statement. Now, someone hears that statement, 100 people hear that statement. And if one person out of that believes that all dogs are black and all dogs will bite people, whether or not it's unbelievable to the 99, I have provided disinformation. I know that that is not true when I said it, but I'm saying it because I'm trying to manipulate someone.
Mm.
But if I say to Indigo Saint at the third eye, his platform, Indigo Saint, I'm going to cook a pie at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You come over to my house and you can enjoy the pie that I'm going to cook. He comes over at 6 o'clock p.m. to eat this pie, but he gets there. I say, "Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to say 7 o'clock p.m." Now he still arrived at 6 o'clock p.m. based on the information I told him, but I didn't do it with a nefarious intent. I did it out of accident, but I did provide him misinformation. So that's misinformation, right? So
Mm.
if you take those concepts and you put it into what we do when we're looking at these technology projects, it's dangerous. If you think about it, it's hard and dangerous because companies who have a lot more money than we do can manipulate the narrative, and they do manipulate, and we accept it because we listen to advertisement. All advertisement is a bias in a positive narrative that the company wants you, the consumer, to believe about their company in order for you, the consumer, to buy, use, and participate in whatever they want you to do. That makes sense, Indigo?
That makes a lot of sense. And the reason why we fall for a lot of these things, right? Especially when it comes to money, right? Is that money is such an emotional thing. $100 might not be a lot of money to you today, but then when your bills unpaid and families in hospital and you have that car that you off and the kids need to go to school and your last meal was 2 nights ago, all of a sudden dollars becomes way more than $100. Do you get what I mean? It's our attachment to money. Our attachment to money comes from our emotions, and it's very hard to get information and to remove the emotional side. As humans, that's who we are. That's what we are. We are emotional beings. Sometimes you're happy to see people. Sometimes you're not happy to see people. You know, um, and it's those fluctuations where you kind of have to think about it all the time. I try and say this often on my channel, that whenever you are going to make a financial decision on your money, right, make sure you've done your due diligence. I haven't maybe perhaps spoken in detail as to what that due diligence means. It means looking at information outside of what you would like to happen. I feel like a lot of people in the crypto space, like we get into things and we're like, oh, I would, win Moon, win Lambo. And because we want Moon and we want Lambo, all we can see is all the positive information on the project. And sometimes you miss out on all the other stuff. And like some of the stuff, yes, like there's no company that's perfect, right? But some of the information that's out there would give you enough time or enough or indication that, like, you know what, maybe this is the time for me to pull my funds from this project and maybe reinvest them into something else. Maybe this is my time to secure my profits. Then that way, whatever it is that I lose becomes my initial investment, or 50% of my initial investment, because now I've made money from this project, right? But it's like, how are you capable of making decisions which aren't driven by your emotions? Are you able to make a decision which is purely logic? Like, okay, this makes sense. I'm reading this information. I'm seeing this. I'm seeing this. Okay, this just came out. This just came out. This just came out. I thought in like the next 6 months, I was going to be a billionaire. Looks like I'm going to have to postpone that dream a little longer. And you know what I mean? It's, are you capable of making those decisions with sound mind, without investing, because I feel like we invest twice. Yeah, we invest with our money, and then we invest with our emotions. And I feel like the emotional investment is the most difficult to get out of. Because your money, you can lose your money, like, for sure, and there'll always be more money. Emotions are a difficult thing to tackle. But yeah, this is, I probably maybe should have, or have said also on my channel, that a lot of like my thoughts and a lot of my views come from a very esoteric space, and it's that human nature. I like to speak to the human, to the person, not to your bank, not to your MetaMask wallet, but to you, the person who today you woke up. I don't know whether you've had a great day or not. I don't know whether you've had coffee. I don't know whether you're a tea person. But then at the end of the day, there's something that's happening in your life today, and that thing is gonna, that whatever is your first emotional response to your day is what's going to carry the rest of your day. And just paying attention to that. I think paying attention to that, like, how do I feel today? Do I feel happy? Cool. Do I feel sad? Cool. Okay, now think about the money decisions that you make when you're happy, and think about the money decisions you make when you're sad. You know, like, what do you do with your money in both of those instances? And yeah, and I know this is like, kind of going on a tangent, but it's coming back to that fact where it's like, if you love dogs and Underdog just said all dogs are black, you can be like, yeah, I love black dogs, and so all dogs are black, you know. And it's like, but if it's like, oh, but like all dogs are black and all dogs bite, but you like dogs, so you're like, no, like you're gonna defend that with your heart, you're gonna defend that with your life, until you jump into a yard and there's a pit bull in there, and maybe, you know what I'm saying. So it's just like taking it back to that emotional side. Just think about how you feel about your money today.
That's a wow. That's a really good point. You said a lot of points there that I think that we should touch on a little bit. One thing is how we invest, and we invest with our emotions. And I know that Indigo, when I first introduced this collaboration between me and you, I saw a couple of comments and people didn't quite understand what the connection would be. And so let me explain that. By not being introduced to a different way in which you can approach researching something that you hope to have an exponential effect. Everyone knows that the research that we provide, you're not just here listening to me and Indigo and Black Room Investing and Shook Focus Digital because you just want to. Oftentimes you're listening because you want to find an edge that you can get out the information so you can have a financial benefit from it. Now, we can't give you financial advice, but the information itself, the knowledge itself that we're taking our time to research, you didn't do that research and you want that knowledge, and that knowledge helps you. But here's the problem: we think about what will happen when you make the right decisions, get in the right position, get the right tokens. But sometimes we don't think about what happens when it actually occurs. I have been in many times over overwhelming financial wealth from the research I've done. Overwhelming. And I've lost overwhelming financial wealth as well with the actions of individuals who have nefarious intent. But regardless of whether you win or lose, what do you do when you're in that position where you're looking at your accounts and you have 7 zeros after a number and you're there? The thing that you have been planning for, that you had hoped for, that it didn't come through the lotto. It came through the research and the time that you dedicated, the belief, and you got yourself in that position. Now you got this wealth. Then what? And so that emotional piece, like the third eye talks about, he's preparing you for that. It prepares me. I watch your videos every day, multiple times a day. They're 10 minutes long at the most of them 10 to 13. And I take the same amount of time to do other stuff in life. So I say to myself, I need to refresh my mindset, because if I'm not prepared to be in the position that I keep saying I want to be in, then I'm going to lose that thing. That's the scariest thing. I'm telling you, folks, when you see the finances in your bank account, what about the taxes? How do you get it off the exchange and avoid the most amount of capital gains taxes? Or how do you get off the exchange in general? Or the fees? What about people knowing who you are because you have a digital footprint that's large and varied, and now you've talked about this thing and someone can try to take your assets? There's so many things that we have to cover and we haven't covered. So I think it's important that you said when we're investing, it's not enough to just simply talk about a project and whether or not we believe it's good or bad logically. We have to get that emotional reaction, because just as I explained what happens when you have that wealth, you can also make a bad decision and lose it all because you move too fast. I've known with me, for example, I've had a situation even this year where I know my research is thorough, Indigo, and I would be in a position and I'm there so early. This is oftentimes I'm there so early, there is no one else talking about it. This is where I'm at often. It's the loneliest thing in the world. I don't know if you guys who are listening, Indigo, you probably can relate this. Have you? No, I'm telling you, you're so early that no one is talking about it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That is
uh,
scary.
it's it's a it's a blessing and a curse, because
Yes.
again, it's like you want to be early, right? You want to be the
Yes.
first one, right? But then it's that who else around you understands what's going on, you know? And I think that's one of the reasons why we're driven to create communities. I think that's one of the reasons why we're driven to even make these videos, where it's like, there's so much um there's so much that you know and so much that you can share and that you do free, you know. And it's that thing that drives you to, like, okay, well, I need to make a video, I need to talk about this project, I need to research this project thoroughly. I remember the time during the NFT, when NFTs were coming up, right at the beginning, and being one of the first artists in Africa. And I mean, when I say one of the first artists in Africa, I'm talking maybe first 10,
The first.
you know, in the whole continent, which is
And the
scary.
continent.
In the
Make
continent, not
that be
like in
known.
my country.
Make that be known, Indigo. A lot of times people think Africa is a
As a
state.
country,
Can we
right?
please get people right with that?
Yeah, so let me address that. Let me fix that right now. So Zimbabwe, country. South Africa, country. Nigeria, country. Ethiopia, country. Tanzania, country. Ghana, country. Egypt, country. All part of Africa.
Thank you. Thank you.
Massive continent. Yeah, massive continent. And yeah, and I'm saying, like, I remember I was like amongst the first. And I'm even being very generous with the number 10. I'm pretty sure I was like maybe first five, to make an NFT in the continent. And then the first one to publicly actually announce and say, oh, this is what I'm doing, and getting, press coverage. And again, not from my country, from my region, but from blogs in the United States, blogs in Europe, talking about, oh, there's this artist in Zimbabwe who's doing this thing with NFTs, and this is going to help his family because this is, and the technology did, I was able to do a lot of things for my family, and then because I knew I could do this, then I thought like, well, I know how to do this now. Let me teach people. Let me show people how to do it. And that in itself was so difficult because artists wanted to do things in their own way. They were like, oh, but then what happens to my music? And there's so many questions, and and again, I was in it for the technology. I was in it for the technology, and I came out, with a considerable bag. I must say, sir. I came up with a pretty, a good bag out of it. But I was in it not for the money. I was in it for the technology. That it made a lot of sense to me. For one, it meant I could sell my music for way more than what I was getting from Spotify. Like one song sale would be equivalent to like 10,000 streams on Spotify, you know, um, and sometimes even more. Sometimes like 100,000 streams on Spotify wouldn't equate to one sale of one NFT. So it was that technology, and just like, and you see again, it's bringing it back to a community where there's a community of artists that I was a part of, from whom I was also learning, from whom they were also sharing information, sharing knowledge, sharing methodologies as to like, oh, this is how I do this, is how I do this, is how I do this, and that translated not only in the crypto space but also in my music generally, where my focus as to how I was creating community with my core fans, like, oh, what do these people want? How can I best serve them? All of that coming from that NFT space. So I absolutely understand what it's like being the first person. It's like the analogy is you get into 100-meter sprint, right? And the race starts, right? And then all of a sudden you finish and you turn behind you and no one started running, you know? And it's confusing because it's like you don't know if you are a part of this race, or maybe you need to go another lap and come and run again, So yeah. Um Highly recommended. I highly recommend being first in spaces. But it comes with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, you're
You need to
100%. You're 100% correct. Being first, as I was saying, and as you said, it's scary. Indigo Saint, the third eye, just gave his example of being the first in Africa, the continent, one of the first to release an NFT. Some of those I'm going to be talking to everyone about. We are really ramping up. What we're doing here with the third eye and myself, Underdog Research Channel, no one else is doing. We're creating communities that are using the technology and also gating the information so we can build a exclusive community where you can go to a place and talk and collaborate in the metaverse. And unless you are one of the individuals who are a part of this community, you won't be able to access it, because I think it's important to block out some noise, not all voices, but block out some noise so we can build community. It's easy to be on a comment, for example, and you comment and you're given information without context. But without context, we can't use that. It's not usable. So, what am I trying to say? When we're in the first in this space, when you're here with us, and I'm talking about Project A, and no one else is talking about it, that's okay. That might be a indication that you're doing the right thing. And if someone then comments without doing any research, without looking into it, and all they say is, this is a scam, or the other end, this is great. One thing I do, I have to ask why. Notice when you ask why, I want you to take this heart. When you ask why, very few people respond why. Most of the time they refer to price action. And as you know, price action doesn't dictate the historical price action does not dictate the success of a project. We have seen, Indigo and I have seen a company that had the best thought process you think about how to use this technology. One a few years ago was going to help keep people safe and children safe from exploitation. When I heard of this project, because of what I saw they did, I said, yes, I like any project that can help to keep children from being exploited. But what we couldn't anticipate is the mindsets of individuals who might have nefarious intent, and that means negative intent to do something wrong. That's the part. So all we are armored with, my friends and people who are a part of this community, is community collaboration and coming together. And actually, as you've said so many times ago, Saint, taking responsibility for our own investment, because no one cares more about your coin than you do. No one's going to lose sleep whether or not you lose $50 or $10,000 or more than you will. But we have to be willing to have communities that we build where we take action. If we're only sticking to get our information from Telegram and going into these communities, which they're talking about that token, and that you're only hearing echo chambers of what they're saying positively, you're really not researching. You're really setting yourself up for failure. So, the third eye, soon, this is not the first time I've done it. I'm about to release a video where I talk about the negative sentiment about a project that we've been talking about for weeks now, that I've given Minty videos about, both good and bad sentiment. But this video is exclusively to talk about the negative. What do you think people are going to think about that? And what do you think about a video where I bring out the negative things people are saying?
Mm, I think that too is important. I think that too is important. People need to understand fully what investment they're getting into. You know, you need to understand, like, a coin isn't one-sided. You need to understand both sides, and then that way, whatever decision it is that you make, whatever happens, that responsibility falls on you. You know, I started working out recently, and there's one motto that I go by. Whenever I think of, like, skipping a day when it's leg day and it's difficult, I always remind myself that pain is inevitable. You know, I'm either gonna suffer the pain of discipline, or I'm gonna suffer the pain of regret. And I choose the pain of discipline any and every day.
That's
Because the
Mike
one
Tyson
thing that
stuff.
you don't, yeah, you know what I mean? Because the one place that you don't want to be in is 10 years from now. And you're looking back and you're like, you know what? In 2024, I had an opportunity, you know, and I missed that opportunity. I didn't take the opportunity. Or I didn't take, just, maybe an hour is too much in your day. You know, maybe 30 minutes is a lot. But how about five? How about five at different parts of your day? How about five in the morning when you wake up, when you're making your coffee? How about five at lunch? How about five in the evening? How about five before you go to bed? How about you just do a little bit of your, again, due diligence? And I think it's important. I think that video is going to be so impactful. And I think it's so important for people to understand every facet and every side of this project that we've been talking about. You know, there is a part, underdog, that you mentioned, um, about the people who lead these companies. The people who are um, the figureheads of these technology, these tech companies, right? I think also it's important to also know who these people are, and to know who the associations are. Because if you show me a person if you show me a person's friends, I can tell you who that person is. You know, if all your friends are graffiti artists and they like to do nefarious activities at really strange hours, I can absolutely tell you what type of a person you are. You know, and that's not coming from a judgmental point of view. But then, if we are going to talk about where you are going to put your money, then you absolutely need to know everything. You need to understand everything. And I find the concept of it, I think, is lost in people, because everyone banks, but no one knows who the bank manager is or who the bank owner is, right? And it's like, but you trust that, like, this company, this all, because that's what a bank is. That at the end of the day, if I have $100 and I put $100 in my bank, I should have $100 in my account. You just trust that system. And the reason why you trust it is because it's worked for multiple years before your time, right? But then if you took $100 million, you went to put it in the bank today, and you went the next day and you asked that bank if you could see your $100,000 with your own eyes, would they be able to show you that money? I'm just saying this just to say, we put a lot of trust into these companies, and we don't even know who the people who are leading them are. We're blessed enough because of the power of the internet. Thank you, Google. And the power of YouTube. Thank you, YouTube. And the power of research.
I love it. I love it. Absolutely. I agree with you. And it is a lot of hard work, folks. I know I really appreciate personally uh, the, for me, I really appreciate the fact that when I first started my platform, I was doing this thing years before I even knew of YouTube, years before I ever would even consider that. It was my own private research. And the intent was to empower my own personal family. And when it has assisted in the way that it did, and I'll give you a quick story and then we'll wrap this up because I want to move on to other topics. And I think we're going to do that on the third eye. But I remember I had got into Robinhood. And when I got into Robinhood, I had turned $500 investment into thousands of dollars, first time trader in a matter of a couple of weeks. I thought I was just beginner's luck. And then I took that thousands of dollars and I was able to turn that into tens of thousands of dollars. And I thought that was a beginner's luck. The next thing you know, I'm looking at a particular amount of wealth from an investment that started with a $500 investment. And I'm like, why am I keep getting this right? I don't know nothing about, um, you know, Bollinger Bands and the buy the dip and sell the top. And I wasn't using any of that. All this technical analysis. Underdog Researcher does not use any technical analysis. I don't call myself a trader. All I knew to do was to do what I've been doing for my whole life is to research something as thoroughly as possible, see the potential in it if I thought it was good, and if I thought it was good, and I would put my money into it, and then it just kept being right. And then I realized that that is the mythology. The mythology was the research, and after that happened, and then I kept and I started to bring it to my friends. I was on a social media platform, and I tried to tell my friends and family. Nobody would listen to me. I noticed that no one would listen at all. They wouldn't like it. But if someone put a picture of a cat video up, they'll like that. If someone put a picture of something that was drama, like fights and arguments and drunken slumpers of people doing crazy stuff, people would be engaged and comment and have talks about that, but not about this. And then they would be in a position where they needed financial wealth, but they wouldn't turn to the right people. They would look at scams and they'll look at people saying, hey, why don't you get this multi-level marketing ploy and pyramid schemes and all kind of stuff. And I just didn't understand it. Like, why is it that when you give people research, that's a problem? And I realized there's a conditioning. That conditioning, the third eye, comes over time, and that conditioning happening over a period of time. And now people are just not willing to accept that there's a responsibility not only for the person researching, but for them to protect their investment by listening and engaging in these resources. So, that was powerful for me. And that's one of the reasons I started this platform. And so now I'm at a place where, I'm doing well. And I know that I've helped people as make a lot of money over the years. Now, the problem with that, there's no crown, there's no award for it. A lot of this stuff happens in silence, and though that's fine. But I think it's important I think it's important that that is done. So I want to make sure I brought that out. Um, I feel that it was a good conversation that we had today. I want to thank the Third Eye for being here today, and thank him for the opportunity to speak to you. And for everyone else, if you're here and you're listening to this, thank you for coming to another one of our research conversations. We will do this more often, and it's going to flow a lot more smoothly, where we're going to communicate and have a more uh, in-depth conversation. And then we'll also talk about particular technologies, and I think that's important. Well, folks, that's all I have. Don't forget to subscribe and to the Third Eye, also the Underdog Research channel, and tune in by going to the link in the description of the video if you want to get the information in the metaverse. That's where I'll be releasing this information first. And soon I will be checking the comments and seeing who of you are engaging and taking the resources given to you and who is engaging in that, so I can give you parts of the web 3.0 so you can access content that no one else accesses unless you take the time to engage. Thank you very much. Third Eye, you want to say anything before we get out of here?
Yes, sir. Underdog, it's always a pleasure having a conversation with you. There's always so much growth. Sometimes the things that I think about that I only really grasp when we actually start having these conversations. I'm like, oh yeah, I was thinking about that. And I get to share this, I get to have someone who's also a conduit, someone that I can, share this information and bounce some of these ideas that I have. It's been absolutely a pleasure. And you mentioned something which is just something that I thought I'd just leave people with about the research and how it's people would rather do the MLM, or they'd rather find other ways, other than the research, right? And I'm a mathematician. I like the numbers and I like the formulas. uh, Correct me if I'm wrong, but if I still remember correctly, the formula for work in physics is force times distance. And that's still applicable in real life. You are going to have to put in force, which is effort. You're going to have to put in force over distance, over time, over a duration. You're going to have to put in that effort. You're going to have to keep on going. And it's that. And that's the work. That's the amount of work. That's how you're going to get to the point or to the place that you want to be at. So always remember that like work is always force times distance. And if you're really trying to go the distance, then you can divide work, by force, and you can figure that out yourself. You know what I mean? But absolutely, just remember to keep on doing your own due diligence and keep on doing the research. Remember, in the words of Underdog himself, it's research over hype. Today, tomorrow, next year, next decade, 20 years from now, 100 years from now, it's always going to be research over hype. Underdog, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, and thank you to everyone who's watching. And thank you for all of your comments. And thank you for subscribing. And thank you. You guys are the ones that keep me going. So really appreciate all of you.
Thank you very much for being here today. Indigo Saint with a Third Eye. Thank you for being a part of this channel, folks. Hope that you enjoyed this. Please, again, you will only be able to find this content by going to the Third Eye and subscribing, and also in the metaverse. So if you see there's nothing on the Underdog Research channel and there's nothing on the Third Eye that week, likely is that the information is in the metaverse. So go to the link in the description of this video and all his videos and find out, visit, and then we'll start having meetings there and having conversations in the metaverse. So I hope that you do that. But until next time, folks, this has been the Underdog Research Channel and the Third Eye. I hope to see you soon. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
The juices within you.
All right, folks. I'm here. I hope that you've enjoyed the Underdog Metaverse channel, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you. I'm gonna be holding an event tomorrow, and I might go on tonight too in the Metaversus Lounge. And the Metaversus-Lounge is a place where I'm gonna listen to music, have a little party. And if you want to join the Underdog Research channel and the Underdog Metaverse channel and the Metaverse and be a part of this, then all you got to do is look when I go live and then click on the links in the description of the video, and we'll be in the Metaverse having a good time. I hope that you enjoyed the video. I will see you guys in the Metaverse. And until then, make sure you stay up on your research over the hype. Take care. Goodbye.